on this episode of Insight, siblings, friends or rivals? Sangeeta, you're one of three sisters, you're the middle child. What is that like for you?
I love being the middle child. I always say if I was to choose ever, I would always want to be the middle one. When I was growing up, I was just the younger sister because my younger sister came much later. So I had a great time being the special one. Anytime there was something naughty we did, my older sister got in trouble and I didn't. And then when I got the younger sister, I had more like a playmate and then I could switch between the two. So I like to believe that I was close to both of them at different stages of our lives, and I spent more time with both of them separately.
Did you ever feel overlooked?
Yes and no. When I was growing up, I thought I was overlooked, but looking back at it, I think I wasn't, and I got away with a lot. In fact, I was pretty special, even though I'm saying it on national TV.
Your sisters have given you a nickname. What is it?
I don't agree with that. I'll tell you what it is. I don't agree with it. They call me the squeaky wheel.
The squeaky wheel, why?
Yeah, because they think I complain a lot. I don't really. But they are always saying I complain a lot.
Amita, you're the eldest. Why squeaky wheel?
As Sangeeta said, she was in the middle and she always said, oh, Amita's the eldest, so she gets all the attention. And then Neha is the youngest, oh, she gets all the attention. I never get any attention. Having said that, she got the most attention ever.
I've got away with a lot.
Yeah. She got a lot of attention and really spoilt, but we don't mind it. We don't hold it against her.
Can you give us an example?
We were invited to to go to a friend's place in another city for a holiday, and we were staying with them. And Sangeeta thought their bathroom was not up to the mark. So she refused to use their bathroom for the entire time that we were there. So normally people would say, tough luck, not for Sangeeta. My dad used to take her to a 5-star hotel every day to do her business.
I'm not proud of that, but yeah.
And Neha, you're the youngest sister. What was your experience like growing up?
I have to say I was very spoiled by my sisters, my parents, of course, and always the baby of the family. However, was always bossed around and still am. Look, but I still enjoy being the youngest one. So it's sometimes overlooked, I suppose, and not heard enough. But my sisters tend to think I've well and truly sort of got my voice now. But it's about
time ago.
Bron, when you grew up in a big family, you're one of 8. Where do you sit in the mix?
I'm number 6 in the family. I have 2 older sisters who are twins, then 3 brothers, then myself, and then 2 younger brothers.
Did you enjoy growing up with so many siblings?
I had a lot of fun. There was always something going on, some crazy adventure. It definitely wasn't the Brady Bunch. It wasn't always fun, but generally I enjoyed it.
What do you feel like your siblings taught you?
Because I was one of the youngest, I learnt a lot from my older siblings. So I learnt very much to share, to be kind, to listen to others, even if I didn't agree with their opinions, to stay open to others' opinions. And I was often reminded that the world did not revolve around me, that I was one of many and that we needed to work together.
Eldest to youngest, what's that age gap?
So there's a 20-year age gap.
Did those age gaps affect the relationship you had with each sibling?
There were times when I could relate more to my younger brothers than I could necessarily to my older brother and sisters. But most of the time it was fairly harmonious. There were certain older brothers and sisters that I would go to for advice, for example, and I was very protective of my younger brothers.
Leah, you also have big age gaps between your siblings?
Yes, I've got a 7-year age gap to my older sister and a 13-year age gap to my older brother.
How do you think that shaped your childhood?
I was closer to my sister when I was younger because she was in that closer age bracket. Once my sister hit about 15, 16, I would definitely try to like hang out with her friends, like put makeup on and like try to grow up faster so I could be in her kind of like space and sphere.
What's your relationship like now?
I think it's an interesting relationship. I think we chat every now and then, but I wouldn't say like we are super close like I think some families like and siblings are.
Would you like that to be different?
Let me think on that. I think like we have reached a really nice balance where we chat enough times where I don't feel disconnected from them, but I know if I needed something, I could always reach out and they'd always be able to reach out to me. But I do think that we are all in like very different points in our life with family and career and like relationships and stuff. So yeah.
Rachel, you're a researcher in child and family development. Can siblings shape who we are?
So first of all, it's the longest relationship you're likely to ever have across your lifespan. But we also share just as much DNA with our sibling as we do with our own parents and children. And that makes for a very, very strong bond. And it can get quite intense. And it can get intense in a very good way. So when things are going very, very well, you have this wonderful, close, warm relationship which really shapes, your own development, your self-esteem. You've got that camaraderie and someone to go to. But also if it goes badly, it can be really quite nasty as well. So there's a level of intensity there that I think is probably underpinned by biology that's not particularly well understood.
Are there other factors that can affect sibling relationships as well?
Yeah, well, I think we've spoken about the age gap, so that's one sort of thing. But also just personality, family dynamics, and often the big one that we talk about, particularly if it does go wrong, and particularly if relationships become fractious, is where there's a lot of competition between siblings for parental resources. And I don't just mean money, I mean time, warmth, emotionality, attention, all of those sorts of things. And what we typically see where a sibling relationship falls apart is where there's been quite intense competition and then some resentment that's built up because there's a feeling or a perception that one sibling has somehow done better than the others.
Bronwyn, can you relate to that?
I can relate definitely to parts of it. My parents were incredibly busy. So my mum worked full-time as a registered nurse, and my parents had a 7-day-a-week business as well, so they were often away from us kids. As far as attention goes, they were very careful to be as fair as possible. If there was any rivalry and competition, it was more that I come from a very competitive family. We just, if you put a game in front of us, we would really be on basically as to who could potentially outdo the next person. And growing up with 5 brothers means it's quite a masculine household. So when we played games, it got rough. We'd play cricket, we'd play football. My brothers were often making gadgets. And because I was one of the younger ones, I was like the guinea pig for testing the gadgets. So, it wasn't so much that my parents didn't give us attention. It was, and there was a rivalry. It was more amongst the 8 of us that things would sometimes kick off.
Rachel, can competition for our parents' attention be a source of sibling rivalry?
Yes, we heard before about competition, but we also heard that the attention was spread evenly. And so there was a sense of fairness there. And that is usually a sign where things are not going to go wrong. It gets negative when there's a perception that someone has gotten a much better deal than someone else. And that's where it tends to fall apart. Now, that could be a real perception. There could be a sense of favouritism there for a whole range of reasons. The parent might just be more aligned in interest, personality with the sibling. But where there is that idea that someone has done better than someone else, that's where we tend to see rivalry and conflict.
Charlie, you're here with your brother Thomas, who's your twin. Any rivalry in your relationship?
Absolutely. Everything we do is competitive. It's always very fierce between us two.
Is it?
Yeah. Everything we've done up until probably the end of high school was identical. We play the same sport, we're in the same friendship groups, we watch the same things, play the same games. Everything we've done has been together. So we've always competed to be the best at whatever that is.
Thomas, is that true?
Yeah, it could be like absolutely anything. As long as I win and he loses, I'm happy with it.
I won more often.
Of course you did. Thomas, where does that competitiveness come from, do you think?
Oh, well, I think it's just, we're just innately competitive, but I also think just having like a direct comparison, it's easy to benchmark what my standard should be, because if he does it, then I'm like, I should also be able to do it. So it's just, I'm always striving to be better than him, not because I don't want him to succeed, but because, I don't know, I just want to be better or just perform to his level. Because when people ask me, oh, do you have a brother? It's always difficult for me to answer, because it's like, yes, I do, but I view him as just like another me, just not someone, it's just weird. Like, if you go back 5 years and I make different choices, that's how I turn out. It's just like...
What sort of things do you compete over?
It could be like doing the chores where we just do rock, paper, scissors, and he just loves going rock, and it's a mental game about who wins, who loses, take the rubbish out. It takes like 5 seconds, but we spend more time probably arguing over who does it than the actual chore.
You're pretty competitive when it comes to AFL. How did you feel when Charlie tore his ACL?
When he blew out his knee, it was kind of an opportunity to like differentiate myself, because a lot of the times when we're out on the footy field, it's people have no idea who's who. But now it's like whatever I do, people know, oh, it's him, he's done it.
Oh, right, so not much sympathy. It's more like, oh, here's a chance.
Yeah, it was more, yeah.
Charlie, would you say it's a healthy rivalry?
Yeah, definitely healthy. We push each other to be better because we know, like he was saying, like the benchmark of what we can be. So we never, like we argue. People sometimes say that we, like, it gets too personal, but it's never, like we know that we're joking around when we argue. It's just because we know that we're just very competitive. We always want to be the best. So it's never been anything negative, really.
Do you reckon your parents see it as healthy rivalry?
It depends. Sometimes they go, oh, like, yeah, it's all right. But then they hear us arguing and they go, what do you want about? This is so, it means nothing. What are you arguing about? Stop arguing. But it's never really something that's like had an adverse effect against us. Like, it's never been bad.
Leah, you're the youngest of 3. Did you ever feel competitive against your siblings?
Oh, yeah, all the time. But it was definitely self-inflicted. My brother didn't think we were competing on anything, and my sister didn't think we were competing. But in my head, I was like, I need to reach where you are.
Really?
Yeah. Growing up, it was a lot of like, my parents put like the academia was really important. So like my brother, he had a scholarship to a really nice school, and I was just starting like basically primary school and he was already graduating. So seeing that kind of stuff, and that made me from a young age really look at things on like a bigger scale and be like, okay, I can reach this. How can I be more ambitious to reach the next goal? This is what they've achieved. How can I almost be better in a way than them?
Here's how 3 sisters manage competition and ambition.
In our family, we all have a bit of a competitive nature. But there's never been a nasty rivalry or anything like that.
Yep. It's definitely a good thing that we've found our own passions and things that we want to complete in life. I'm Sunday.
I'm Claudia.
I'm Gemma. We're the Hollingsworth sisters.
Sunday's the eldest. Me and Cloudy are fraternal twins.
That's the most recent one.
Yeah, wow. Watching Sunday, so young, achieve so much was so inspiring.
Some of my achievements with trampolining is I've been to 9 national championships. I've also represented Australia twice at the World Age Champs in Russia and England. Yep. I now play AFLW just for my local club, Bow Morris, and I'm really hoping to take that as far as I can.
The Olympics was just incredible. I just remember running out onto the Olympic stage, 80,000 people, and just feeling the roar of the crowd. Having 2 sisters who have competed at such great heights, it's really lucky to have, and that support system I'm really, really grateful for. I think it only drives me, and it always has driven me ever since watching them, thinking, yeah, I really want to get out there as well.
Are you ready to roll it?
Yep.
Here we go.
I couldn't see the signs, I never saw it in your eyes, but baby, you know I'd do it all for you. I love it here so fast, not me thinking we would last, but baby, you know I never stopped loving you.
That was great.
This year, after having done The Voice, which was an awesome experience, I'm hoping to drop some new music soon, which is really, really exciting. We all knew Gemma had this amazing talent, but to finally be able to show the world and show what she's been working so hard for is just amazing, and we can't wait to be there and support her every step of the way. So cute that you're crying.
Rachel, can sibling rivalry be a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, what a great example. So you've got three very competitive, high-achieving girls. They're actually, in a way, mentoring and inspiring each other. And so they're sort of just like these two boys here trying to one-up each other all the time, but in a very healthy, friendly and positive way. They're actually looking at each other as a role model, not necessarily as a competitor.
What about when it turns into fighting or arguments? Is that pretty normal?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Siblings are going to scrap. You've simply got people growing up different developmental levels for a start. So, you know, the 2-year-old tantrum with the teenage hormones, I mean, what a disastrous combination. And so you're going to have fighting and scrapping and people not understanding each other. But in some ways that can actually be really helpful as well. I think, you know, siblings learn about some of those developmental stages, particularly those siblings from large families. They figure out that, you know, little kids think differently and they understand that. They learn to negotiate, they learn good conflict resolution skills.
Charlie, twins are often viewed as a pair rather than individuals. Is that something you experience with Thomas?
Absolutely. For example, like when we work at Woolies, there's some people who didn't know that we were different people, so I thought we were putting in some ridiculous hours.
Really?
And then they point out, oh wait, they saw us out working at the same time, like, oh wow, you're separate people.
And people compare you?
Yeah, we get compared all the time. With school results, it's all very competitive with that. It's always, oh, what did you get? What did I get? We compare. We're very quick to point out each other's errors and flaws because we want to show how we're better and comparing ourselves.
You're at separate unis now. Has that made a difference with that sort of comparison and dynamic?
It's just strange because like his entire life, I know everything he's doing, his friends and everything, because we share the same friendship group. And when he's at uni and I'm at uni, just two completely different worlds where I don't know what's happening. It's just kind of strange.
Kim, you're a clinical psychologist. Is it common for siblings to sort of feel like they're in each other's shadows?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a common experience for siblings, particularly for twins, of course. We're at the same chronological developmental age, right? We're sitting there alongside each other for every score on a report card, every goal at the footy, all that kind of stuff. When one of the siblings perceives that the other is more successful, or if they perceive that the other is more valued in the family system, that's where we can start to feel that sense that we're in the shadows. Even though society at large is probably going to see, you know, like the boys as twins as they're coming as a pair, right? But if as parents we're able to see our children as their own individual people and get attuned to those individual children and their needs, then we're going to foster a much deeper sense of a secure attachment where each child just knows that they are fundamentally valued.
Thomas, do you ever feel like you live in your brother's shadow?
Not really, to be honest. Like, even if he outperforms me in something, I view it as like, oh, good for him. And I always know that I can reach that mark because if he does it, as I said before, I feel like I also have the capabilities. So I don't think I've ever believed that I'm in his shadow, or I don't think he felt that vice versa as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Charlie, do you ever feel that?
Not really. We do very different things now, so like it's hard to be obscured by each other with what we're doing. When we're a bit younger, like people genuinely couldn't tell us apart. The desire to be like different, it was probably a bit stronger, but now as we've grown up, it's kind of just that difference has just occurred naturally. So there's never really been something about living in each other's shadow.
People always tell us not to mix business with family. But honestly, that's what makes our venue so great. We've all been able to specialise in our own fields.
I'm Sarah and I'm the designer.
I'm Jonathan and I look after the service aspect.
I'm Simon and I'm the chef.
My name's Ryan and I'm the better chef.
We're siblings.
Our mum came up with the idea to get us all to go into business together and put our skill sets together to create something great and beautiful.
You'd be silly to think that working with family is free of tension, especially because we're very passionate people.
We always clash. We never back down.
As a family, we own 4 venues in Melbourne.
Trust is essential in business. Because we're siblings, we understand each other. We've grown up supporting each other, being there for each other. So it's only made sense naturally to continue to support each other through business.
We never hesitated to go into business together. It felt right, like it all made sense.
We all get together pretty often.
I think more so now that kids they enjoy hanging out with each other.
Family is everything. Because we're Italian, we've grown up eating around the table, talking around the table. It's what made our upbringing so special.
Buonissimo. Our parents played a massive role in making sure that the business never got between us. We can disagree, but as long as we respect each other and all are committed to the same outcome.
At the end of the day, family is life.
I love you all, and here's to us. Cheers.
Joey, you and your brother Marty also run a business together. How much time do you spend with each other?
About 90 to 100 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot.
That wasn't always the case. What happened when you were in your teens?
Marty's 2 years younger than me. I'm the older brother. I went off the rails a little bit, drugs and alcohol, and I intentionally distanced myself from him for that reason.
How did you reconnect?
A few years later, when I had my shit together, I don't know if I can say shit.
Totally say it.
Yeah, I started making pizzas in 2009. So what happened was he was at the gym and he was really serious about bodybuilding and whatnot. I would cook fish and steaks and drop it off to the gym.
Okay.
Because I was worried he wasn't eating enough protein or something. And he was about to start using steroids. So I was really concerned that he was gonna do something that wasn't great for him. And my career, I saw it coming to an end in the pizza industry by myself. I felt powerless in the pizza industry. So I convinced him to join me.
In your 20s, you both changed your names. Why?
We were up in Brisbane and we were trying to think of some out-of-the-box marketing. We had gone through a pretty intense ordeal. We really bonded getting through that situation, which was a 6-month ordeal. And we just thought we want to be pizza superheroes or villains, depending on how we were going to be perceived. So I changed my name to Joey Pepperoni and he changed his name to Marty McFly. Legally, passport, everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the beginning of Pizza Bros.
I feel like that's so much of your identity, the T-shirt, the name, the tats. Can you show us your tat?
Yeah.
Pizza.
Yeah.
You changed your name for the business.
Yeah.
Then COVID hit. What happened?
We weren't in the right mind state to go and start a business in a new state with no family, no friends, no support. And we actually ended up homeless for 3 to 4 months. We went bankrupt, yeah.
How did that affect your relationship with your brother?
I think it created some kind of weird bond between us. And we've never had a fight despite the 90 to 100 hours a week. We've had one argument that I can remember where I tried to strangle him in Bangkok.
That's quite an argument.
And that was the one time we had a fight. We've never had a fight since. Yeah.
Where is Marty tonight?
He's running the shop. This is my first day off since 12th of April.
Wow.
To be here.
So have you been telling him that you need to come back to this show every week?
It's nice to be here and not to feel hot in front of the oven because I only do the oven. So I've done 260 days of oven.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you ever did have something that you disagreed about, how do you think you would resolve that?
We tend to like the same things. We tend to think the same things. I don't know whether you guys do too. But we say the same things to people. Someone will walk in, I'll say something, and then they'll come in, and then Marty will see them, he'll say the same thing too.
Wow.
So we're quite aligned in our thinking, and we generally always agree on the same thing.
Sangeeta, how do you deal with conflict with your 2 sisters?
There's a lot of conflict. There are 3 of us, and we're women. I'll speak for all 3 of us, actually. We deal with it okay because there's always 2 versus 1. And we have a lot of interventions. We go for walks, we talk it out, we yell, scream, cry, and tell each other off.
Amita and Neha, do you butt heads with one sister more than the other?
You go. Okay. Look, it's always as Sangeeta said. Generally, if there's a disagreement, it's 2 against 1.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes Sangeeta and I will think, oh, Neha. And then Neha and I will say, Sangeeta. They never get a chance to say that about me.
As the eldest, Amita, did you ever feel like you had to take on certain responsibilities growing up?
I did feel that I had to be a role model. I had to be the good first child, set a good example. So I always had to be good at school, good at everything, best behaved, polite.
It hasn't changed. It continues to be like that.
I was going to say, has that changed, or do you still feel like that today?
Look, I still feel responsible, but having said that, they've really stepped up. So it's quite nice to share the mental load, the emotional load with my sisters. And, I must say, as Sangeeta said, we argue and what have you, but it's a great team. And
We've evolved, I think, with time, we lean on each other all the time. We disagree a lot and we fight and scream and all of that, but I think we do support each other when we don't hold it against each
all the time.
And not only during the bad times, but also during the good times. I have to say, I was in Paris, and they actually came and visited me.
Wow.
1 day's notice.
Wow.
Bought a ticket, decided tomorrow on the plane, and they came to visit me for a week. So I'll be always grateful for that.
Wow.
It's fun.
Bron, when you're one of 8, did your role within your family change over time?
One of my oldest sisters was very much the leader of the pack. And then the brother 2 years above me was the leader of the younger group. Unfortunately, back in 2009, the brother above me died in his sleep. And so that did change the family dynamics. Of course, it shook all of us up, but for me, how it impacted me was I took on more of a responsible role for my brothers under me.
How did his death affect you?
After my brother's death, I realised that I was way too far away from the family, who were, with the exception of my youngest brother and myself, everyone was based along the East Coast. And after my brother died, I made a decision to move to be in the same location where he had been living just before he died, and that was so the Blue Mountains.
After he died, you mentioned you took on a bit more of his role in a way. What did that look like?
For me, his role was a guardian of the younger family, but also he was a very good communicator. He used to try and get everyone together for family gatherings outside of the usual events like Christmas and birthdays and things, and text messaging family members if there was a special occasion coming up, or to remind my siblings of another sibling's birthday. That's my way of trying to keep in contact with everyone and keeping everyone connected as well.
Kim, how common is it for siblings to take on specific roles within a family?
I think it's a really natural thing that happens in family systems, and parental expectation and just a person's temperament will shape their role in the family system. So it's pretty nuanced in terms of how something like birth order will play out in a family system. But certainly it's pretty natural that we gravitate towards particular roles. And typically that can be pretty functional. Where it's not so helpful is when those roles or expectations become very rigid or get in the way of someone developing their own autonomy or living in line with their own goals or values in that broader sense. That's where we can run into a bit of trouble.
We do hear about stereotypes, say the middle child, the youngest child. How much truth is there in that?
Yeah, look, there's some truth in it, right? Like the eldest child is typically more responsible and might hold that sense of responsibility for taking care of people and helping them with decisions and being the good one and setting the example. The middle child, often we might feel or get that sense that we're a bit overlooked, or that those resources are really shared amongst all of the children and we're kind of in the middle. And the youngest child, as a stereotype, they're a bit more maybe free-spirited. Maybe they've experienced a bit more lax parenting approach, which has allowed them to kind of just like do their thing a bit more. But again, for each family system, there's going to be nuance in the way that that actually plays out.
Sangeeta, you're the middle child. Neha, you're the youngest. Do you relate to any of these traits?
I think that was spot on for Neha and also spot on for Amita. I didn't actually feel that overlooked, to be honest, because she was always there for me. So, and I have to say our parents were quite like, you know, we have to be a team. So I did not feel very overlooked, but maybe some other middle children do.
But you didn't give anyone a chance, did you?
Bella, for most of your childhood, you grew up as an only child. What happened when you were 13?
So a little before that, when I was 3, my parents divorced. And then when I was 13, my mum met my stepdad and he had 5 children, 4 of them being quadruplets. So my life in some ways felt like it changed overnight, going from being an only child to then having 5 bonus siblings. And it really was a bit of a what the f*** moment. And I think I was pretty against it at first. Being an only child for so long, I had grown up really with everything and having all of my mum's attention, and then going to having 5 other siblings and 5 other people's needs who needed to be met was a huge change.
Where did you fit in age-wise?
So I was the second eldest. So we have Matt, who's the eldest, and then myself, and then 4 quadruplets.
What was that transition like?
It was quite scary. At 13 years old, I'd grown up in inner city Melbourne, and then we'd moved, you know, to the burbs, I like to say, and it meant I had to move schools. It meant I, you know, left a lot of friends behind. That was something I was actually quite excited for. Being 14 at the time, I was excited for a change and to meet new people and almost start afresh. But it was such a huge change at really such like a developmentally important part of my life.
You and your older brother Matt ended up going to the same school. What was that like?
It was a little tricky. We almost pretended like we didn't know each other. I can't speak on Matt's behalf behind that, but for me, it was quite a traditional school, and no one I knew had divorced parents, let alone came from such a blended family, and I wanted so badly just to fit in. And it wasn't embarrassment, but I think it was just fear of being ostracised. And I really wanted to, I guess, make a name for myself and be my own person. So it was, I guess, a little awkward, but it's definitely not like that now.
How was it for you being part of a blended family where the other 5 siblings, I presume, already had a very close bond? Did you ever feel like the odd one out?
I would be lying to you if I said I didn't. There were obviously times where I did feel left out, but I don't think that was ever intentional. I don't think anyone ever tried to make me feel left out. I think, if anything, everyone, my stepdad, my step-siblings, my mum, tried really, really hard to make me a part of that family, and I'm really grateful for that.
So you never felt like a black sheep?
There were obviously times where I did feel like, you know, everyone else had a closer bond. But I think as we've grown up, we're now young adults, and I think that's very different. And I can even see how their relationships have changed as we've grown older. So no, definitely not feeling like a black sheep.
Samia, you described yourself as a golden child turned black sheep. Why?
I was the first child and first grandchild from my mum's side. So due to a small health scare, I got a lot of attention from my parents. That continued even after my sister was born. And in school, college, everything, I was above average, just got through without causing problem for my parents. So I turned out to be the golden child in comparison to my sister, who was dyslexic growing up. We all thought she was just lazy. Back in India, we didn't know what dyslexia was in 80s and 90s. So until she was 25, we never found out. So she was always the slower one and I was the faster one. My mom always wanted an engineer in the family, so I did engineering, got into tech and stuff. So that's how I lived my life as a golden child, yeah.
So what changed?
When I turned 25, 26, my parents proposed an arranged marriage, and that's where it started. Yeah, like some people laughing there, but yeah. For 4 years, I tried meeting guys. My parents set me up and tried very hard to make it work. My parents, who were quite liberal and forward in our upbringing, suddenly turned traditional. Balancing that became very difficult as well. So when I turned 30, I decided to put an end to that shit show. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's when I turned into a black sheep by not treading the path, yeah.
You also changed jobs.
I do both, actually. So I work in tech, and at 33, 34, I started doing stand-up. I thought, yeah. So I'm a double seal black sheep right now. For a few years, I hid that with my mom. My mom didn't know till I turned 38, 39. Yeah, but so she didn't know. But now she knows, and she's like, yeah, she does what she wants.
How do you feel about the black sheep status?
I quite like it, actually. It's less expectations. I can do whatever I want. And I go to a lot of younger cousins' weddings and all. No one bothers me anymore. And it's been fun, actually, yeah.
Has that turnaround from golden child to black sheep changed your relationship with your younger sister?
I think I'm more empathetic towards what she would have dealt with growing up. Like, I probably wasn't the best of sibling, being in my own world, trying to please my parents. So she grew up very difficult with 3 against 1 in terms of what she was going through. So I quite understand that she must have dealt with a lot. And we are close now, and yeah, we discuss about these things. So we are 2 against our parents, so we can bitch about them and talk about them. So that's very fun. So we've come around, yeah.
How is your sister seen within your family today?
Oh, my sister's turned it around. She's the golden child in the family now. She's had an arranged marriage, married the guy my mum found, and she had a child now, so she's forever a golden child. I'm not going to catch up with that. So, yeah.
Leah, for a time you also felt like the black sheep in your family. Why is that?
I thought I was the black sheep, but my siblings would say that I was the golden child. And I think part of it felt to do with that age gap and not being able to relate to them so much. But then it really had to do with like my interests and what I was interested in doing, like with my career. I was really into the arts and acting and writing and directing. And that's kind of like the career I wanted to pursue. And that's not the traditional thing you should do, because I was very good at school. So mum was like, you should be a lawyer. But yeah, so then I felt quite like the black sheep, maybe a bit from like what my parents and like those expectations from them, but also like just seeing like what my siblings were doing. Like they had the conventional job and I was out here being like, I want to be an artist. So yeah.
Do you still feel like the black sheep?
Not as much as I used to. Like, I still think in a way I am the black sheep because I'm a little bit more reckless and out there than like my siblings. But also currently, like, yeah, I do feel a bit like the golden child. I think I got lucky being the youngest in the family of 3.
And you got accepted into a fantastic performing arts school. Did that change things for you, how you perceived yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so I got accepted into WAPA, which is like a drama school, and it has a very low acceptance rate. And I applied not thinking I would really get in, and I was going to take a gap year otherwise. And when I got in, not only did it kind of like shift something in me and like, hey, maybe what I'm doing has some merit to it, but also I think I remember my brother saying to me, he goes, oh, so you're like actually good, as soon as I got my acceptance letter. And I still think about that because I guess all of that stuff is super ephemeral. So how are you meant to know what good is, I guess? So yeah, I definitely think that shifted a perception in not only between me and my siblings, but also like my parents and what they saw me doing.
Leah, you have 2 older siblings. Your parents fled the former Yugoslavia and arrived in Australia before you were born. Did that affect your relationship with your brother and sister?
100%. So my parents fled former Yugoslavia in the 90s, and when they were fleeing, they lived in Germany for 7 years. And when they lived in Germany, they both had my brother and my sister. And then Germany basically had a rule where after 7 years, they were kicking out the migrants. So it was like up to my parents to either come to Australia or go back to former Yugoslavia, which had clearly just been destroyed. So they moved to Australia, and once they'd kind of settled themselves up, they decided to have me. And I think that definitely affected my upbringing and my relationship with my siblings, because living in Australia, there are so many more opportunities that you can be offered. And I think sometimes maybe my siblings saw those things as maybe I was getting more than them. So I think, yeah, it definitely affected our relationship, and also because they had a whole life in a different country that I guess I will never understand what it was like living in a time where my parents were fleeing from a war and they were, living with parents who were going through that as well.
Has that difference in how you grew up led to any tension or challenges?
I definitely think we view different versions of our parents. So my brother, I think, definitely got the strictest version of my mum and my dad, and my sister got this nice in between, and I got the most relaxed version, kind of could do whatever I want. And so I definitely think that created tension, because I was able to do these things that my sister would look at me and be like, well, I couldn't do that when I was your age. And I also think it developed a different kind of mindset. I'm a little bit more reckless. I'll book a flight at the last minute, whereas my sister values more of those things that are quite someone who wants maybe a stable income and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think it created some tension between us.
You had a period of estrangement from your sister. Mm-hmm. What do you put that down to?
I think the year that we were estranged from each other came down to a mindset thing, and also what we were able to receive as kids. I think, again, living in Australia, I received so many opportunities, and my parents were able to support me in a way that I don't think maybe my sister and brother were able to receive support. And so that came down, obviously helps to build our values and what we value and believe in. And I think that's what also created tension and why we became estranged for that period of time.
Rachel, you research family relationships and dynamics. How common is estrangement among siblings?
Yeah, so probably surprisingly common, actually. About a quarter of siblings can expect to experience estrangement at some point in their life. But just as we've heard here, it's not always permanent. In fact, more often than not, it's not permanent. And researchers even talk about estrangement cycling between siblings. So people sort of leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back for a whole range of reasons. But that parental alignment is often a very common reason, a child taking the side of one parent versus another, and then that sort of splitting the siblings. And that, of course, is going to be a lot more common in households where there's conflict between the parents, or indeed the parents are divorced. But again, one of the second most common reasons for estrangement is opportunities. You had it better than me. So we've heard a really good example here of what tends to lead to estrangement, but siblings, seem to be able to find their way back at different points in their life.
You have 5 children. Would you consider them to be close to each other?
Yeah, look, as a group they are, but I certainly do have 2 boys who are exceptionally different. I said before that siblings share 50% of their DNA. I think in my 2 boys' case, it's all recessive. I don't understand how I've managed to give birth to 2 such incredibly different people. So extremely different personalities, and also born very close together. So you had that competition for, I guess, parental time and attention. So it was all there, I suppose. They've never been estranged or anything like that, but they are such different personalities. And I think this is sometimes a reminder for some people who do have very different children that this is actually okay. I'm quite sure if my sons met each other in a workplace or any kind of environment like that, they would not choose to form a friendship with one another. So the sibling bond that they do have is very biological, and that's probably where it begins and ends.
How do you feel about that?
I am surprisingly okay with it. I really am. I suppose I've always had that idea that you have children and your job as a parent is to raise them to be an autonomous adult, to be their own person. And if their own person happens to be different, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I don't think parents should put so much pressure on themselves to try and have this Brady Bunch happy family all the time. Sometimes it's just not going to be possible.
Is it a parent's role to create close bonds amongst siblings?
I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's possible a lot of the time for parents. I would say it's almost the opposite direction. It is a parent's role to make sure that they don't create divisions amongst siblings. So we've talked about, competition for resources, making sure that things are being fair, also making sure that you're not splitting kids because of alignments with mum versus dad and these sorts of things. So I don't think a parent can reasonably have a role to create a close bond, but they certainly have a very big role in preventing fractures.
Bella, you were 13 when 5 siblings were added to your family after your mother repartnered. How has that experience shaped you?
Growing up, I was somewhat of an introverted child, and then going to having 5 siblings relatively overnight meant that I had to be a little bit more extroverted. I really value that now as a young adult, and I've moved away from home and to a completely different town, and that has meant I've found it quite easy to make new friends and build connections in that way, because I've had that experience of having to build connections within a new family dynamic.
How important are your siblings to you as you get older?
I have a really beautiful relationship with all of my siblings now. We don't talk every day. We actually rarely ever talk, but whenever I go home, it's like, time's almost stopped and we just pick up where we've left off, which is really beautiful. And I think as young adults, there's only 2 years between the quads and I, and then a year between Matt and I. We have really begun to share interests, and it's actually been really beautiful to see, particularly reflecting on how I was so against it at the start. It's really lovely to now, see so much value in this family that I now have.
Thomas, you and Charlie still live in the family home. Do you think about what it might be like when you have to go your separate ways?
Yeah, it'll be strange. Well, I assume we'd probably move in together, so it just makes sense. But if we don't, I'll be glad, because he is so messy. Like, you go in the bathroom and the bathtub's half full with his clothes. It's ridiculous. But besides that, it'll just be interesting, because I have to operate by myself. Even just outside of being a twin, just growing up and doing that naturally is strange. But when you lose that person that you've spent all your time with and go by yourself, it'll just be unique. So I don't know how that part of my life will look, but yeah.
Charlie, do you think that competitive spirit you have with each other will continue on even when you're not living together?
Yeah, that will never go away. We're too competitive in every aspect. I mean, he is going to Europe through school for a while, so it'll be a glimpse into what life would be like without him, in the other side of the world. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But even him being in another continent, I think we'll still be comparing and being competitive.
Joey, you and your brother Marty McFly had dreams of running your own pizza restaurant. Your first venture failed due to COVID. What did you do next?
We came back to Sydney, broke at that point, coming out of homelessness for 3-4 months. And we just did what we did to get the money in the first place, which was to work 80, 90 hours a week in pizzerias, which we did for, 2-3 years, and saved up enough money and got a sponsorship with an oven company, and then someone made a TikTok reel that got 1 million views, and we were off. Yeah.
So you started another pizza business in Sydney.
Pizza Bros, same name.
Pizza Bros.
Yeah, we just kept on going Pizza Bros. Yeah.
How's the business going?
It's going good now. We work every day. It's just a grind. 7 days a week.
How many pizzas are you selling out of that oven of yours?
We're doing 2,000 a week now.
Wow.
It went from 600, 700, then 1,000, 1,200, now 2,000.
Amazing.
We're getting busier, yeah.
Would you have been able to do this on your own?
Absolutely not. That's why I poached Marty from the gym, because I knew I wouldn't be able to.
Amita, you and your sisters have remained close even when you've lived in different countries. Why do you think that is?
Countries, it doesn't matter. Closeness is not about physical distance. So Sangita didn't want me to say this, but we're on the phone every day.
Why do you think she didn't want you to say that?
She thinks it's a bit over too much for TT. But we're on the phone every day. We know what's happening in each other's lives. And I must say, it's a blessing.
Sangeeta, do you think you'll always be there for each other?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I moved countries to be close to them.
Really?
So, yeah, well, they won't even move out of the suburb. Or the street. They're like, we can't move out of here because we won't be near them. So now, yeah, we'll always be like this, whether we fight or whatever. Yeah.
Neha, how would you describe your sibling relationship today?
Look, as much as I sort of complain and sort of say they boss me around and, you know, I need my space, you know, I hung up on them yesterday. Don't ask me why. But I know for a fact I don't think I can imagine a life without my sisters. And, you know, I've got 2 girls of my own, and I tell them, I think your sister's your best friend, and, you know, you can be yourself, and I think I can't live without my sisters.
How close do you guys live together?
You don't want to know.
I do.
It's literally 2 minutes walk. So from my place, it's in the middle, and then 2 minutes to Neha's, and another 2 minutes.
2 minutes to
so
me.
actually, Neha and Sangeeta are a bit far away, 4-minute walk.
Oh, that is quite far. It's like Uber distance.
Yeah.
It's so lovely having you in the studio. Thank you so much. Thank you to you all for being here. You can catch up on this episode or any others on SBS On Demand. See you next time.